Okay, welcome everyone. This is one of our early webinars. And this is Gunter Schopfer. He is from Florida, but originally from Argentina. He was diagnosed in May of 2017 and has pretty much reversed all of his symptoms. He will be at the 2019, our very first Healing ALS conference. He will be sharing his story there, although he's not an official speaker because he's not a long-term survivor. So you'll notice that the people that we've got actually speaking are, I think Kim is the least at 8 years, all the way up to Evie, who is 39 years since her diagnosis, which is pretty cool.
That's impressive.
Okay, so Gunter, I'm actually going to let you.
Okay.
I'm going to let you tell your story. So why don't you do that first, and then I'll interject and ask any questions. I think the big theme for this, if you want to notice, I want you to, if everyone listening, notice how many things Gunter did sort of on a physical level, and then how much he did on changing his stress level, lifestyle, mental, emotional state as well. So just notice that as he's speaking, because he really does two things at the same time. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
So tell us first how your life was before, though. I want a little bit of your life before, and then diagnosis. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you so much for everybody who's actually joining us in this webinar. So, my previous life, I think if everybody would actually see me on the street, I was like the classic guy driven by material goals in life, completely stressed out, trying to reach whatever, the best house, the best car. I was in the investment banking industry for many years. And of course, everything's super hectic. And we live actually in lives that were super hectic, where we have lots of pressure from our families, from our friends, from our society, from everybody around us. And everybody expects something from us, right? And so we do not most of the times pay attention to how we feel. So we just go through life just saying, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. This is the correct thing to do. This is the correct thing to not to do. So pretty much my life was like that before. Married with one son. My son today is 13 years old. And living here in Miami, originally from Argentina, born and raised in Argentina. And then I moved to Miami 12 years ago. So back to 2016, where I was completely stressed out with my work and my objectives and my goals in life. I started in May of 2013. I actually started doing CrossFit because I thought that my appearance didn't look as good as I thought. So for almost 4 years, I really I didn't have enough stress in my life just to put more stress in my body. So I said, let's hit it the right way. So I did almost 4 years of CrossFit, which definitely I love CrossFit. I would love to do CrossFit, but I mean, for certain reasons, of course, I cannot do it again. But at one point, I used to be able to do 40 pull-ups in a row. Had my six-pack. I was super proud of my body. I had so much. I was super strong. I was even competing. And so November, December of 2016 was a really stressful year for me. Those months in particular were super stressful. I was traveling a lot as well due to business. And at one point, I went back to the gym because I had to. I mean, since I was traveling a lot, I couldn't actually just go as much as I wanted to the gym. I used to go 6 times a week, every morning. 6:30 sharp. So I go back to the gym and I hang myself from the pull-up bar and I couldn't do one pull-up. I couldn't. I just couldn't lift my body. So I thought that the lack of training that I didn't do for that month and a half was actually the cause of that. And I was really frustrated. I was doing 40. How come a month and a half, it's just lost strength not to be able to pull myself up at least once. So a coach was right next to me, and he knew me very well. Of course, I mean, seeing me pretty much every single day for the past 4 years. I mean, we became really good friends. So he looked at me, he was like, can you do it again? And I tried to do it again, and I couldn't lift myself up again. So he said, go and see a neurologist right now. That was my coach. And I was like, neurologist, why? It's come on, it's probably my arms, they're tired or whatever. My mind was no, I can do this, no worries. So I had like so many things like planned for for the end of the year. December, I had this planned trip to Utah actually to do snowboard. I love snowboarding with my son, and I had a road trip with the entire family to Asheville, North Carolina. So many things going on. I said, no, I'm not going to go to a neurologist right now. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go when I come back. So the trip to Utah was really good. I was able to snowboard, not too much of a difficult on the balance side, but I for some reason I didn't feel the strength that I used to feel. My legs weren't like that. I couldn't trust my legs that much, and my body wasn't moving the proper way. So I was concerned, but I said I was kind of like, this is product of my tiredness. How tired I am, and basically of all the stress that I had during the year. I was like, okay, this is going to probably unwind in the next couple of days. Then I went to Asheville, and of course brought my snowboards with me as well. There's a little spot that we can snowboard there, and I wanted to put my boards on top of the roof rack of my car, and I couldn't lift the board, and that was a big red flag. I was like, how come I cannot lift my board? And so I started getting concerned. I remember there was a lot of snow that time in Asheville, and I had to go and buy some salt bags, just to clear the driveway. And so I was trying to put to pour the salt in the driveway, and I couldn't hold the salt bag. And I was really frustrated. And I was like so angry. I was really like mad and completely frustrated. And everybody could actually sense the way I was actually feeling. But no one said a word because, it was me, the determined guy that knows exactly what to do and has everything sorted out in life, right? So January, I went back to the office, and at that time I used to smoke cigarettes. And so I wanted to grab a cigarette and put it in my mouth. And when I lifted my hand, I couldn't just coordinate like the hand with my mouth. I couldn't just like lift the cigarette and put it in my mouth. So I had to use both hands just to kind of like put it in my mouth. I remember I threw away the cigarette and I was like, this is it. I'm done. So I went to Cleveland Clinic here in Miami. Cleveland Clinic is it's a very big clinic here in Miami. Very reputable doctors there. So I went to the emergency area. So they made a couple of tests. It took x-rays mostly. And they said that there was something wrong with my spine. They weren't able to diagnose something. So they were just like, it was kind of like observation mostly. And basically what they said is actually that they kind of like the definition that they put was like initial encounter was kind of like a brachial plexus disorder. And they recommended me just to go to a spine specialist. So definitely that's what I did. Actually, I had a friend of mine that worked at a local clinic. It's called Ortho Now. And basically what they do is actually they specialize in everything related to orthopedics, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to go over there just to see what's going on with my spine. So I got 2 MRIs done. One on my spine, on the cervical, and the other one was actually on the lumbar.
Just out of curiosity, Gunter, did you get a MRI? Oh, that was a set. There was no contrast in the MRI, right? That's a
no contrast at all. No.
Perfect. Okay, good.
So I remember, since this guy was actually a friend of mine and he used to work there, I was like, okay. He was like, okay, we need to wait until we get the approval from the healthcare insurance. I was like, no, I just want to get it done right now. Because my whole body was, for some reason, telling me something. And at that point, I didn't have the open mind, the mind that open just to understand that there was something really wrong with me. But I could actually sense it for some reason. So I was like, no, let's get it done right now. So they did both of the MRIs. And they found a herniation on my C5, C6 spine. The first approach, of course, is like they called me like 2 days later, and the doctor told me, it's like, hey, listen, you have a herniation on C5 and C6, and probably this is actually compressing your nerves in your spine, and basically that's why you're losing strength in your arms. Okay, everything seemed logical, and I was like, okay, yeah, probably could be. So, nevertheless, I was like, okay, I need to get a referral to a good like neurosurgeon so I can actually go and see him. So I found this doctor, very well renowned here. Actually, I had like very good references to other people doing like fusions and their spine, right? Just to, feel much better and relieved. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this over with. So I went to see. His name was Jonathan Gottlieb. So I went to see this doctor, very young doctor, really knowledgeable, and so he saw my C5 C6 herniation, and he was kind of like, okay. I remember the first time that I went over there, the consultation was kind of like, he made me walk so much because he wanted to see where the imbalance was, because he couldn't see why I was so uncoordinated with my moves. Kind of like my legs were going like one way, my hips were kind of like moving differently, and my right arm was just kind of like, hanging on the side. So so he's like, why don't we do a nerve conduction test? I was like, okay, let's do a nerve conduction test. So I had no idea what a nerve conduction test and what implied, right? So apparently there was this really well-known doctor in nerve conduction test here in Miami, and I went to see her. And again, I was just like, okay, it's going to take you probably like, I don't know, 2 to 3 months just to get your approval from your healthcare insurance, whatever. I was like, no, let's do it right now. And I don't know if it was my face that was so freaked out, and I was like so concerned that everybody was kind of like very friendly with me in the sense like, you know what, let's do it right now. And I remember the guy who actually did it was a Cuban guy, really nice guy. And when he was doing it, he started explaining how the procedure works. I was like, okay, we're going to insert a needle in one of your muscles, and we're going to measure the speed in which your nerve conducts through that muscle, just to see how much of a communication do we have, and if there's any issues with it. So you're going to be hearing like different noises, right? Like the white noise type of noise. And if there's like just a lot of noises in between, it means that there could be a problem with your nerves. I was like, okay. So I was laying there, and the first thing that I noticed is actually when he saw me laying on the bed, he looked at me. He was like, "There's something wrong with your shoulder." It's like, did you realize that, right? I'm like, no. I was like, okay, well, let's do a nerve conduction test. He didn't say that much. So he did the whole nerve conduction test, and for some reason I saw his face. I was like, is there anything wrong? And he was like, well, it doesn't look quite good. But I would rather just let the doctor just, tell her diagnose, actually. I was like, okay. So meanwhile, at one point, I think he was like so impressed how my body was actually, laying there on the bed, that he was constantly staring at me. I was like, what's going on? And he was like, I'm sorry, but you have a huge atrophy. Your arm is just like, look at this. And so he started just showing me like the muscle in my hand, mostly the one here in between my thumb and the rest of the fingers. And for some reason, I could actually just like lift my hand like this and see through here. I didn't have any muscle at all on my finger, on my right thumb. My forearm was, we have many muscles in our forearm, but basically like, well, the ones on the side were just like simply gone. It was just like bone. And then like my arm was kind of like, I had like an oversized kind of like tricep compared to my bicep. And basically my shoulder was kind of like the whole delta area was gone. It was just gone. So he was like, that face, I remember his face. It was like super like, I didn't like it at all. So I was like, okay. So I tried to kind of put myself together, and I was like, okay, this is okay. There's nothing wrong here. It's just the nerves being compressed by the C5 and C6 herniation. So we're good. So I kind of, I was intrigued. I couldn't sleep at night. I was like really concerned with this whole thing going on. So I kind of grabbed my computer and started kind of like, whatever people don't tell you not to do, just like don't Google things. Well, I started doing it. I think we all do, right? So I remember looking at pretty much like all the interpretations of the MRIs, and for some reason I found out that my herniation had like I think it was like a 1.5 millimeter herniation, and for some reason the where the spine actually just goes, there's no obstruction. So basically, that wasn't actually the real cause. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, apparently, this herniation apparently doesn't seem to be like the main issue here. So I was kind of happy that I found out that it was like, this was of course by myself, not because of the doctor said so, but I was just kind of happy with myself because like, okay, you know what? This herniation is actually not the end of the world. So I can definitely just like continue to CrossFit and continue with my life and just like forget this whole thing. So I went to see again the neurosurgeon, and he was like, we're going to give you a peridural injection in your cervical spine and in your C5 and C6. So we can definitely just like de-inflame that disc and help you release those nerves.
So an epidural injection of what?
Of steroids mostly.
Steroids, okay. So it's going right into your spine.
Exactly.
Just kind of what you need as a potential ALS patient.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, okay, keep going.
So February, I mean, I remember the day as if it was yesterday, actually. That was actually the beginning of this whole unveiling, right? So I went to the clinic. I got the peridural injection. The whole process takes approximately, I think, 8 minutes. So you're just like laying face down on a bed, and they have like this machine that definitely just can see how deep they're going with the needle in your spine, because it's kind of scary thing, but definitely I was like, okay, you know what? Let's get this over with, and that's it. That was kind of like almost my conviction, just doing things. It just go get this over with, and that's it. So I actually went by myself. So I was laying face down. There was a nurse and the doctor in there, and so they started the procedure. So they apply apparently a little bit of anesthesia. I think it's lidocaine or something like that in the area, and then they just like to go with the needle, right? So procedure 8 minutes later, I'm just like laying there. The doctor says like, well, everything went fantastic, so you can just like, I mean, put your shirt on and everything's gonna be fine. So when I just lift myself up and was actually gonna grab my shirt, everything starts to get blurry. Everything. And I remember looking at the nurse. The doctor wasn't even at the office at that time. I mean, he left the place where we actually did the procedure. And so I looked at the nurse and I was like, there's something really, really messed up here. Those were my last words, okay? So next thing I know, it's like when I woke up out of this whole thing, I had the doctor on top of me, kind of like resuscitating me, and 5 more nurses around him, just like, and everybody was kind of like freaking out. So, I mean, this is kind of like what they could actually see. What happened to me was something completely different. I was just like laying there, and I remember those last words, and all of a sudden just like gone, and I woke up like in a different place, completely different place. I was just like, I didn't have any idea of how I was feeling, whatever. It was just like there, just standing and just watching a couple of old men sitting on the table and kind of like inviting me to sit there. And I remember I just kind of like moving myself towards that table, and someone kind of like pulling me back and just kind of telling me, Gunter, whatever. I was like, and then I woke up and I have the doctor on top of me. So it was a near-death experience. I think so. I want to think so, or I don't know.
So the 2 old men, you didn't talk to them? You just went back to the table before you had a chance to talk to them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it was like almost there.
Yeah. So apparently I was out for a minute and something. The doctor was more nervous than I was. He was freaking out. I remember the first few words that came out of his mouth when I opened my eyes, and I really didn't want to be there. I just want to be like on the other side. The other side was just like super cool. It was like super calm and relaxed. And this side, I saw this guy on top of me, just like kind of like resuscitating me, and back, just people kind of like rushing and running around. And not to mention my nurse that was actually just like laying on the floor, and she was kind of shaking and crying and looking at me. And I remember the words that she was saying. It was like, in Spanish, it's like, tú estás muerto, like you're dead. I'm like, what? And I couldn't actually get a good grasp of what happened. Not at that time. Actually, it was kind of that half an hour was kind of coming back and forth, kind of like battling myself like in and out. So after half an hour, I realized that I was there, and that was actually the place that I needed to be, because this is it. This is my life, right? I came here to this procedure. This is what happened, and I got messed up. So I remember that I couldn't feel a thing. I remember I was there, but I couldn't feel a thing. One of the things that happened is actually, it's like, okay, I need to remember things of this life that really just like good that mean a lot to me. So of course, the first thing that crossed my mind was my son. I was like, okay, my son. And I remember as if it was yesterday, that was actually the worst feeling ever, because I felt like I couldn't actually feel anything. And when I say anything, I couldn't miss my son. I couldn't love my son. And that was just like in that glimpse. And that was really, really frustrating. And that was kind of really, that thought was in my head. It still is, I mean, these days. But at that time, it was like so intense. That was just like, I mean, killing me on the inside. So my business partner, he texted me because he knew I was doing this procedure. He texted me, and I remember seeing the phone, and I gave it to the nurse saying, like, you answer the phone. Just so she texted, it's like, why don't you come and pick him up? He's like, he's in really bad shape. So my business partner, he came over like almost like 2.5 hours later, 3 hours actually after the procedure. And he saw me, and the first thing that he saw, he was like, dude, you're green. Are you okay? Should we call 911? Should we do something? And I was like, no, I'm good. I just want to get out of here. So, of course, I mean, you sign like so many releases, so many forms, and so many things that it's just like, you know what? Everything just went fine. The report today says like, I mean, yeah, everything just went fine. I remember going back to the doctor, speaking to him. It's like, dude, what happened? And the doctor was like, well, yeah. He was kind of like dodging the bullet at that time. But anyway, she's like, you know what? This is it. And I went back to my house. And I remember I was feeling really, really bad. I don't know if it was at that point the side effects of the anesthesia, I think it was, because I was freezing to death. I was just freezing. I mean, I had like 5 covers on top of me, and I was still, I mean, I could actually still feel how cold I was, and I was really in a really, really bad shape. I remember, I mean, I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't hear. I couldn't speak a word. Everything would just trigger this massive headache in my head. And so at one point, my mom and my sister, they came to my house, and they wanted to call 911. My wife at that point, she's like, no, let's go to the doctor. So we got a hold of the doctor. And the doctor said, well, just try with an ibuprofen, an 800, just to see if he feels better. And thank God ibuprofen just like kicked in, and for some reason I felt kind of like the dissipating pain in my head just like a half hour later of taking it. So I came back, and I was like, okay, well, and so I started sharing my story with my mom and my sister, and both of them, they couldn't believe it. They were just like crying right next to me saying, oh my God, you just died. What happened? And so I told them, and they were like, oh God, they couldn't believe it. So I was really angry. I was really, I had so much hate and anger inside of me because of what they did, right? And just to see the glimpse of losing your life like that, just in a place that, it was the first time that I've actually been there, to that place in South Miami. And by myself, it was just like so depressing and so overwhelming for me that I was after a couple of days, I call it the rabbit hole. I was down the rabbit hole, and I was like feeling like really, really lonely in this really dark place. And I felt really, really bad.
So Gunter, this happened in February of 2017, yeah. Right? Yeah. So you at this point are not even diagnosed with ALS yet.
Exactly.
But this whole thing caused this sort of depression and rabbit hole thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was angry with, how fragile we are, and basically how people can just take your life away in 2 seconds, and it's like, okay, and you're gone. And not because they want to, just because it happened. It's just like for some reason, something wrong happened with my procedure. And I remember that a couple of days later, I started kind of like looking for other answers. I knew that the Western medicine wasn't helping for some reason, because I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to anything what doctors had to say. I was like so angry at them that I remember that I went and saw this, I don't want to call him a doctor because he's not a doctor, but he's kind of like a massage therapist, but with a really weird twist. He's actually from Argentina, and he helps a lot of very well-known sports guys. Just like, we have a lot of really good soccer players in Argentina. Well, this guy is the guy that fixes them. Okay, it's like this guy's the one that's like, you cannot walk, I'll fix your knee, I'll fix your ankle, I'm gonna fix your arm. He fixes people. Okay, for some reason he
So
knows how to do it.
yeah, I don't want to quite. I just want to get a little bit to so you were in this rabbit hole. How did you get out of the rabbit hole? What did you think? Because then you start looking for other answers.
Yep.
So how did you get out of that really dark place?
I mean,
I also want everybody to be a little bit patient because I know this is a little long, but it's part of Gunter's entire story. And that's why it seems like we got to get to the ALS quick. But this is like the backstory that explains kind of the ALS journey. So, okay. So yeah, how did you get out of this dark rabbit hole?
So basically, I didn't get out of there. I was just like living there, basically. So it's kind of like when you find your new comfort zone. Well, I was actually in that comfort zone. That comfort zone became kind of my place. It was like a place with anger and sadness. At the same time, it was just like, okay, I can fight this. I can fight my way out of this rabbit hole. So for some reason, I think it was my thrive. I always been like that. I always been like kind of like the guy that actually goes out there and fights for everything. Just like whatever is that I want, I'm just going to go and fight for it. That's kind of like my mindset is really determined in that sense. If I want an objective, I'm just going to do as many things as I can do in order just to get and achieve that goal. So I think in that case, it was like, I mean, my arm, of course, was still hanging on the side. I mean, at that point, my arm, I couldn't move it anymore. So I had my left arm with whatever strength that I used to have in my left arm just to pull up my right arm, just helping myself just to do whatever I had to. I couldn't shower properly, couldn't wash my hair properly. This rabbit hole, I mean, was deeper than I thought. So it's not a matter of if I got out of there. It was just like, I thought that there was like even more depth in that rabbit hole. So for me, it was just like, okay, I'm still here, up here. It's still dark, but I think I'm comfortable here. And I just put my way back out of this rabbit hole. So I found this doctor in Argentina, and I met this guy before when I lived in Argentina, and I knew that this guy had like really good Asian knowledge in medicine, right? So I went and saw him, and I remember when he saw me for the first time, he touched I remember my left foot, the bottom of my left foot, and he pressed in there because I told him everything that happened, and he looked at me, he was like, "There's something that you're not telling me." I'm like, "No, I told you everything." He was like, "Well, there's something that you're not telling me." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So he kind of like helped me, kind of like fixed me somehow. And he was like, "Just stop walking like a robot," because he's like kind of like a really harsh, funny guy. And at that point, I didn't know it was ALS. So it was like, "Dude, just come on, stop walking like that. Just, put yourself together and just move on in life, right?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I saw this guy for like almost like 6 times. I remember the second time that I went and saw him, he confessed, because I was with my business partner at that time. And the second time that I went by myself. So he confessed right in front of me. He was like, "The time that you left my office, I started crying, and I felt really, really bad because what you have is really, really bad." And I'm like, "Okay, what is this?" It's like, "Well, it's like the good thing that I see you today. I see that you want to live. Your body wants to live, and it looks like your body reacts, to this. So." Let's help your body get whatever it is that you want to be. But just, your mind is somewhere else. I don't know what you're after in life, but for some reason, your mind is actually set into something else, and it's not helping. You definitely need to focus into other things. At that point, for me, it was just like, this guy's nuts. I don't know what to think. It was like, okay, well, thank you so much, whatever. So I went back. The only thing that I knew is just like, for some reason, my arm gained, I would say, like a 5% mobility, and for me 5% was just like insanely good, right? It's just like, okay, I can move a little bit better, even though I needed help just to get dressed and stuff. So I went back again, and the second time that I went, I told him that I went snowboarding with my son because I wanted to move. I wanted to do activities with my son. I wanted to share more time with my son because of what happened before. I died, and for some reason I couldn't miss my son, and I wanted to spend as much time as I could with him. So I remember going back to Utah for my birthday, March 25th, and we spent there, like 4 or 5 days. It was kind of really frustrating because I mean, my arm was, I mean, my entire body was already in a really bad shape. I was getting fatigued like very, very easily. And, but for some reason, I had a really good time with my son. I connected very well with my son in that trip. And we both kind of connected very nicely. I mean, I remember him helping me, just putting my jacket on, my stuff, my gear. And so when I came back, I saw this doctor again, and I spoke to this doctor, and the doctor was like, I see that there's a change in you. And for some reason, I see that whatever it is that you're doing, just keep on doing it. I'm like, well, I'll spend some time with my son. Well, if you need to spend some more time with your son, go ahead and be more time with your son. Okay, so for some reason, it's like I wasn't, I mean, this whole thing of actually just going to Argentina to get to see this doctor was really taking a big toll on me. It's just like financially. So it's like, I need to find another solution. So I came across another doctor, a massage therapist here in Miami. His name is John Schreiber. John Schreiber, the difference that he has with all the massage therapists here in Miami is like, he's blind. So he's blind, and his sensitivity in his hands is just out of this world. And I remember when he actually just started doing the massage on my back for the first time, he started asking me like a lot of different questions. Like, so what is the diagnosis? What are you telling you? What? He was kind of like really, at one point it was kind of like annoying for me. It was just like, why is this guy asking me so many questions, right? It's like, but he was sensing something, and for some reason he wanted to know. So I was like, I don't know. Well, this happened, this, that. And he was like, why don't you go to a neurologist? I'm like, okay. Again, another neurosurgeon, another neurologist. Yeah, go to a neurologist. I mean, I know this guy, and this is a really good guy. I'm like, okay. So I give it a second try. After a couple of months passed, I was like, okay. Even though I was feeling really, really bad. And I went and see this doctor, this neurologist, Bruce. And he looked at all my documents, and he decided to do another nerve conduction test because the numbers that were showing up in the other nerve conduction test, for some reason, they were unclear for him. Or inconclusive, I would say. So he did a new nerve conduction test with one of his associates that actually is in the same building as his. And I did it, and for some reason, this guy wanted to do a bigger approach. Didn't want just the arms and the back, but at the same time, he wanted my legs as well. So he did the whole thing, and I remember his face. His face wasn't really nice, and I remember he checked only my right leg, and he looked at me. He was like, okay, we're good. Okay, you can dress, and we can definitely just go. I'm like, is there anything wrong? It's like, is there anything I need to know? He was like, no. You definitely just going to talk to a neurologist, and he will tell you all about it. I'm like, okay. So I remember at that point, I was just trying to go to the gym, just to try to maintain myself like with more activity, just to see if my body was reacting to this whole thing. And I went to see the neurologist to see the diagnosis. And that's actually May 2017. That's actually when everything came down to ALS. He looked at me. He was like, okay, well, I mean, just want to ask you, do you have life insurance? Do you have a disability insurance? And I was like, yeah, I have life insurance. I don't know about disability. What's going on? He was like, well, I mean, it looks like you have ALS. And in your case, it's really, really bad. You have 2 to 3 years of life. And you should definitely just, go to see another neurologist I can actually just recommend. It's in University of Miami, and he can definitely just help you out just for you to extend a little bit more the quality of life that you're going to have for the next 2 to 3 years. I just couldn't get it through my head. And for me, it was just like nonsense. Whatever he was telling me, it's just like, no. I was just, God, I was just dead like 3 months ago. And now, not enough with this whole thing that now I'm just diagnosed with a terminal disease and I'm going to die in 2 to 3 years. It was so overwhelming. I remember sitting in my car in the parking lot for almost 3 hours. I was just trying to get my head around this whole thing and try to see how am I going to deal with my son? How am I going to help my son just to go through this whole thing? And of course, everything connects in life, right? It's just, I'm a true believer that everything has a reason. And for some reason, I understood that, I lost my dad when I was 15 years old, and my dad died when he was 46. And then again, I'm here sitting in the parking lot. I'm 41 years old. 2 to 3 years of life. I'm going to die probably by 43, but 44. And my son is going to be almost 14, 15. I'm like, this is the same thing that's going to happen to my son, the same thing that happened to me. It's like, why? And that's when everything kind of started really growing in me. I mean, my anger, my sadness, my depression, this big, just dark, I mean, ghost just taking over, and really wanted just to get everything out of my body. I remember it was just, it was really, really bad. So, I came back. I couldn't tell my family right away. I couldn't. I was just pretending that everything was fine. I couldn't share with anybody. And, but in my anger, I think everybody got really, kind of like, everybody looked at me like, what the hell's going on with this guy? It's like, why is he so angry? Why is he so aggressive? And at one point, I just like, I had to let it out. And I told everybody, it's like, listen, it's like, this is what's happening. And I'm going to die. And then, and I remember like everybody was like super, super like, really, really sad. Everybody was crying. It was just like those horrible scenarios that you want to just like get out of your head, just let it go, and that's it. And basically there was nothing I could do. That was the end of the road. And the doctor said, there's no cure. There's no cure. There's nothing I can do. It's just like, take it easy. That's it. So I remember going back to John Schreiber, again, the massage therapist, and he was doing the massage, and I told him what the neurologist said. His friend neurologist, right? I was like, okay. So he was like, no. And me and John became like really good friends. So at that point, I think John was kind of like in denial, and he was like, no, I cannot accept this. And I could actually sense how sad he was. I remember everything kind of, it was going in slow-mo, me just going to this place, trying to, act in this life as if nothing happened. But at the same time, there was this big white elephant just in the big room that no one wanted to talk about. And I remember I went over there, and John told me, hey, let's do this. Why don't you grab all your labs and tests and everything and just send it over to a good friend of mine. Her name is Amy. She's not a doctor. She's a biochemist. And I think she can definitely just at least look at, she's going to look at you in a different way. She's not going to look at you the same way the MDs does. So why don't you send it over to her, and I'll ask her for her to review it. I'm like, okay. Everything was lost, so I had nothing to do. So it's like, I'll send it over to her. So I sent an email to her. And I remember she called me the very same day. And she was like, I want you in my office tomorrow if you can come over here. I'm like, yes, absolutely. For some reason, the fact that she called me the very same day and that everything just like happened like that, for me was already kind of like hope. For me, it was just like, okay, there's another person. Out of my list of checks that I could actually do, it was just like the doctor, and there was, the neurologist in this case, there was just like nothing else I could do. That was it. So for me, just to see that there was another layer of other people that could definitely help you out with this type of thing, for me, it was just like, okay, there's hope. And I went and I sat with her, and we talked almost like, 2.5 hours. And I remember Amy's super, super rational. She's like super technical when it comes down to this, but she likes to evaluate and explain every single thing down to the detail, which I love about her. So she checked my body. She started touching my muscles just to see the density in my muscles. She was talking about the density of my muscles. She was like, you know what? Why don't we start with GAC injections? GAC injections is glutamine, carnitine, and arginine, which is food for your muscles, food. She's like, I want to give you food for your muscles. I don't want your muscles to starve, so we need to give them food until we find another treatment that we can definitely just do in order to help you out, just to make sure that we can do something about this whole thing. I'm like, okay. So I remember the GAC injections at the very beginning. I think it was like 20 injections that I got that very same day. I remember even telling her, just like, you know what? I'm just going to take my time just to analyze if this is like the proper treatment that I should do. I wasn't even cocky about this whole thing. And I remember she looked at me and was like, you can do whatever you want. It's just like, probably time is not on your side. It's just like, it's up to you. And
So she did it in different parts of your body, the GAC injections?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And can you give us an idea of how much that costs, just out of curiosity?
I think, because at the very beginning, she started giving the injections. So I think it was like $200. I mean, the set of injections, right?
Oh, great. Okay.
200, $300. It was 200, $300, somewhere in between.
Okay.
Then she told me, why don't you take the gag injections and you apply them yourself? I mean, because she wanted like everyday gag injections in my arms while I do exercise, because she wanted for the muscle to kind of like build up. And I mean, we know the process of the muscle, how it works, right? It's just like when you work it out, it kind of like breaks a little bit and then starts to kind of like, gain volume by just like extending the muscle, right? So we work the muscle. So she wanted just to go into that process and say, okay, I give you gag injection, I give you food for your muscles, so your muscles can really start to build up again. So I remember it hurt. It hurt a little. It wasn't that painful. And then like a couple of weeks later, she showed up and she's like, okay, we're going to complement this with peptides. I remember that she did like a hell lot of labs on me. I remember it's just like.
Hold on one second. Just so before you did get peptides, you did this for 2 weeks. You were doing it at home, the GAC injections, or you just did it once with her?
Yeah. My brother-in-law, he was helping me. He was injecting right in the shoulder, because this was actually the more affected part of my body. So she wanted kind of like my shoulders and arms, and actually back, it was like a couple months later, I would say, yeah. But we started just with the arms, with the shoulder and arms. So my brother-in-law was actually just like applying the injections. And for me, it was just like this new world of saying like.
And you just did it once a day?
Yeah.
And did you feel any difference in that 2 weeks?
I think it was more mental, the difference.
Okay.
The fact that I was doing something, and I didn't know that the result, but at the same time, the fact that I was doing something for myself and taking care of this, and at least addressing the issue, and not just like sitting and waiting, for me was just like this good motor, just inside of me. It was just like, okay, I'm doing this. So for some reason, I'm a freak of doing things. I really need to do things in my day to day, right? So I just went out there and started doing everything. It's just like started Pilates. I remember started going to the gym with a personal coach, so he could actually help me rebuild muscle in the different areas that we need to. I remember started going to psychologists because I really wanted to see what's going on with me. It's like, for some reason, it's like I understand that there's a physical problem and there's actually something that we can all see that's going on with my body, but at the same time, inside of me, probably there's something else that I need to explore. And because I felt kind of like my life was kind of always driven by what I really wanted in life and not what I actually felt. So I was like, okay, I really need to go to a psychologist. So
you went to the psychologist before you did the peptides, or just around the same time as you were doing?
Just around the same time. Yeah.
Okay. So once you started the GAC injections, you actually started doing a bunch of other stuff also.
Exactly. Yeah. That kind of like triggered everything. I remember, because that triggered at the same time. I met this girl for some particular reason. Like back in 2016, she was in a modeling event. She was presenting the whole modeling event, whatever. And I remember she told me, hey, listen, it's like, well, apparently she knew me from somewhere, whatever. So we were connected afterwards, and she was organizing a trip to India. I've been to India like 16 times already, right? It's just like due to business mostly. And but this trip was actually a spiritual trip, and she was organizing it with her boyfriend. He's a shaman, and I was like, okay. I mean, I'm really interested in knowing a little bit more about this whole thing. So for some reason, I don't know, I started getting intrigued with other stuff that I wouldn't actually look at it like before. I mean, spiritual wise, I was just like dead, I would say. Just like, I mean, my spirit didn't exist. It was just like, it's concrete. Whatever happens in this life is what we can touch and feel and smell, and that's it. And there's nothing else. And so I remember I did a meditation session with her. She's a Reiki teacher. So for some reason, she did this healing meditation, and it was really nice, and it felt really, really calm and nice, and I felt like really, I don't know, a place that you feel in connection with yourself, and at the same time um, calm and relaxed. It was really, really nice. I mean, I couldn't explain anything what was happening, but for some reason I felt really, really good. So, and besides, I got like a connection with this girl, so I was like, okay, well, we can definitely just like talk and communicate. It was really hard for me at that time to communicate with other people. It was just like so hard. I was so into my problem that I couldn't actually just like communicate about anything else. So I really needed like that scapegoat, it's just like talk to someone completely out of my friends and family circle. It's just like someone on the outside, right? And that's why I actually just like got the idea saying, why don't I get a psychologist? Because psychologist, I mean, I'm not afraid of hurting him. I'm not afraid of telling him that I'm gonna die. I mean, if I speak to my mom and my sister, probably they're gonna just start crying. My ex-wife, because then I got separated, but my ex-wife, she couldn't process this whole thing. Unfortunately, she couldn't get out of her own world just to understand what was going on with me, and she was angry as well. So for some reason, she, instead of just like coming out of that place and being right next to me, she decided just to be in her own place. And for me, that was really, really hard. I remember when I saw the movie Heal, one of the things that they tell you is like, when you get diagnosed with a terminal disease, one of the most important things is actually how much love you receive, right? And how much love you get from the people that's sitting around you. Because, I mean, toxic environments is just like the worst thing ever. And in my case, unfortunately, I didn't get the love that I wanted, but for some reason, I had this internal drive for me just to go and fight whatever it is that I wanted in life. And I realized that I really wanted to live. I really wanted to. And for me, the idea of just like thinking that I was giving 1,000 days and every single day I had to live it and enjoy it. And for me, it was really hard, but at the same time, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. So peptides. Sorry if I get like just dragged away, but anyway, just so going back to peptides, physical. For me, I like to kind of like put all the different layers, because I think that we all have different layers, right? And so I like to attack the first one, the one I could actually get my hands on was actually the physical.
Right, but I like the fact that this is all going on at the same time.
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing. So even though you were, you had the physical stuff going, and the physical stuff was actually the impetus for you looking at all these other things too, yeah, like the India and the psychologist, and like looking at, realizing that you're not getting the love that you need and all that stuff. It's like, yeah. Okay, so continue with the peptides. Sounds good.
So of course, within this discovery of layers in my body, the physical things that I was doing, the concrete things that I was doing, that could actually get a grasp of this problem and it's just like treat it, was with Amy, of course, just doing the peptides, right? So peptides, I mean, brief description, it's like peptides is just like the minimum expression of the protein, right? And what it does is actually just like stimulates your hormones in your body, just to, in my case, was just to stimulate the hormone of muscle growth. It's not injecting yourself with hormones, but at the same time, it's injecting something that's going to trigger your hormone just to say, we need to grow more muscle. So I remember at that time, Sermorelin, that was the name of the peptide, Sermorelin. That was actually the initial one. And for some reason, what I felt with this peptide is actually, this peptide, what it does, it stimulates the growth of everything, even tissue, right, in your body. So 10 days later of me taking this peptide, I already could see my skin like really, really glowing. I could see my nails growing like super fast. I could see my hair growing like super fast, even though it had nothing to do with ALS. But for some reason, it's like the way that I was actually looking, I was like, oh God, this is really helping everything. It's not like my body itself, but at the same time, everything, it's like in conjunction with the idea of me doing something about my body. And at the same time, seeing all the different layers of, like, I don't know, taking care of myself on the emotional side with the psychologist, and and doing this relaxation things with the meditation. For me, it was kind of like, okay, I'm taking care of this.
Okay, and the Somorlin, what is it's Somorlin?
Cermorlin, yep.
With
Cermorlin
an
is
S, not a C.
with S, yeah.
Okay, and how much did you get, and how often?
Uh, I really don't remember. I could definitely revisit those numbers because it was like an EpiPen,
Okay,
and the dose I think it was a 0.8. The first one, I think it was like 0 to 1 the dosage that you can actually get, and I think we started with 0.8, which actually was a high dose. Then we reduced it to 0.5 because you have something that's called the IGF, which is the insulin growth factor in your body, and we were measuring it just to see where it was. And for some reason, she wanted to see that we're not overgrowing in my body because
that
that
makes sense.
would trigger other issues, right? So she was really closely monitoring that number, I remember. And the other number that we were monitoring really closely was the creatine kinase. Creatine kinase is pretty much like, I mean, all the protein waste that you get like in your blood from your muscle breakdown. And in my case, I remember it was really elevated.
Yeah, the creatine kinase is, that's a pretty common thing to be elevated.
I mean, in my case, it reached, it should be, the range is actually, I think it's like between 200 up to 300. You should be like around that area at my age. And I was at 1,200. So I was really wasting a lot of muscle. So that, I mean, then we can definitely discuss, I mean, if it's good or bad, the creatine kinase levels. Because,
right. And then how often were you seeing Amy for these injections? Or did you get the injections at the neurologist, or did you get them with Amy? How did you do that?
I was so into this whole thing, like so into it, that I would actually see her like 3 times a week, at least.
Okay.
I would just go there. I mean, I would be with the nurses there that would actually just give me injections as well. And I was still seeing John. So my day at that, I remember my week at that time, which is like, I think it was like Mondays. I had Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I had Pilates every morning. Then I had John Schreiber Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays as well. Then I had my other coach, which was Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. And then I had a massage therapist coming in on Tuesdays and Thursday to do that. And then in the afternoon, I would actually like dedicate just to do meditation, relaxation. And of course, on Mondays in midday, I would actually see my psychologist. So it was just completely packed. My week was completely packed with 10,000 different things that I wanted to do.
So at some point you quit work. I gotta figure that you.
Yeah. Well, fortunately enough. I mean, I bought a business with my business partner in 2013, and even though it was like super stressful, I was really fortunate just to have my business partner taking over the business and say, okay, you know what? No worries, I'll take care of this. You heal yourself. And I remember I was like, okay. And I mean, I'm completely grateful for what he did and what he's still doing, actually. And I remember I coordinated this whole trip to India in November of 2017. And I saw that he was like really stressed out. And since I was doing a lot of meditation at that time, I started kind of like seeing different perspectives of life, right? And the psychologist, he was already telling me that, why do I have a backpack so full of other people's responsibilities? Why am I carrying so much weight? Why? I mean, and literally what's looking, it's like, I mean, from the psychology point of view, it's like your arms gave up. Your arms couldn't hold the weight that you were actually carrying in your back. So I remember that it was a really hard pill for me to swallow. I mean, just someone telling you that your backpack is full of responsibility that shouldn't be there, and that I wanted to fix the world. I wanted to fix everybody. I wanted just to rescue everybody. I wanted to help everybody, and I wasn't helping myself. So I think that at the point that I started kind of like dedicating some time to myself and healing myself, I think that's when everything started to kind of like, I'm not going to say change, but definitely everything started to look different. No. So I remember November already of 2017, we did this trip to India with my business partner. And And I remember that when we got there, it was, I mean, the place in India was just in the middle of the jungle. It's this little town called Malakote in southern India, in Melkote. I'm sorry, Melkote. And I remember it was just this little tiny house, just like two bunk beds, and that was it. And it was very, very humble, and at the same time was really rewarding in every single sense of the word. Because I mean, having a terminal disease and being there, just knowing that you can, I mean, you start to realize that you can change a lot of things of yourself, right? And for me, I remember I did a meditation called Karma Beat Breath, and that was actually very revealing for me. I mean, this meditation is based out of a Russian doctor that he started treating schizophrenia patients with LSD. And for some reason, the government decided to shut him down because it's definitely not the proper way just to help patients with LSD. So they shut him down and said, no, we're not going to accept this whole thing. So this Russian doctor said, okay, we're going to try to find another way just to help this patients. And he found out that by over-oxygenating your body, you can definitely just like go really deep inside of you. And so he created this meditation in which you get into this inner self, like really deep, like, and you connect with yourself by doing an over-oxygenation of your body. So at one point, your body, I mean, we breathe every single day because your body tells you, okay, there's no enough oxygen. You need to get more oxygen in your body. So at one point, it's like you stop breathing and you just like go really in depth. Usually what they do, the shaman or whoever is guiding that meditation is going to tell you it's not going to go over 5 minutes of you without breathing, because I mean, you can definitely have other major issues in your brain. And I was scared as hell, to be very honest with you. It's just like, it's not that I was like, okay, yeah, this is a walk in the park, I can do this, whatever. It's just, no, I was scared as hell. And I remember I did it, and I remember I cried for almost 2.5 hours. I had so much pain. I had so much sadness. I had so much weight from my past, from my father that died when I was super young, from everything that I tried to pull off in my life just to reach whatever it is that I wanted to reach. It was just so revealing to me. And I came out of that house, tiny little house, so relieved and so with a completely different mindset, that for me was just like, okay, there's so much more. There's so much more that we don't know, and we definitely should really look into those things, because I think it's part of ourselves, right? It's like, I mean, the fact that today I can tell you that we have like 5 different layers and accept that they exist and they're part of us. For me, it's a big change. I mean, back then it was just like, again, the physical world, and that's it. Not even the emotional. The emotional didn't even exist. It's like, you don't cry. You just like walk, man up, and do this, whatever. That's it. And today, no, I can tell you, yes, of course, I cried with my psychologist. I started to feel like the whole emotional part kicking in. I really let go of that past that was really, really inside of me. And I didn't know. I thought I was actually over it. But at the same time, we brought it out, and I was able to release that thing as well. And then, of course, connecting on a spiritual level with myself, and knowing that there's something else that sometimes we don't have the words to express it, but at the same time, we know it's there. And we really need to pay attention to it as well. And the same way that we pay attention to our bodies, like physically, we have to pay attention to that spiritual world as well, to that emotional world as well, to our mental world as well, and of course, to our energy world as well. Energy didn't kick in later in 2018. I had no idea it existed, but anyway, it's just like, that's still to come.
So I'm getting a couple questions here, so I'm going to interrupt you. But if people don't understand, what Gunter is talking about right now is really important. We have interviewed 20 people who have reversed ALS, and this is long-term reversals, doesn't even count Gunter. The only thing they had in common was this sort of mental, spiritual shift that took place with every single one. So everyone did a different thing on the physical level, but on the mental level, every single person experienced this kind of shift. So understand, it's probably less important what you do physically than it is what you do mentally. And I don't want to say what's physical isn't important, because what's physical doesn't work unless the mental piece is there.
Exactly.
So that's really the importance. But we do, I don't want to say the physical stuff isn't important. I mean, we're going to talk about diet later on and all the peptides and all the things that he did. There is no one answer on the physical side. It's so individual, and that's why we have functional medical doctors and biochemists and holistic practitioners. But there's a piece of it that your intuition almost leads you to the right people if you're in the right state of mind, the right people that are going to give you the physical treatments that you're going to need to heal. So it's really hand in hand. So I did get a couple questions, Gunter, that I want to ask. So you were going to her 2 to 3 times a week, and getting these peptides.
Yep.
And how much did the peptides cost?
Peptides were expensive. I think it was like between 900 up to 1,200, but that was like the whole month.
That was for a month.
That was for a month, yes. That was injections for a month, yeah. Yep.
Okay, perfect. And so you did this from June, July, August, September, October, and then you went to, did you obviously stop the injections in November when you went to India for 3 weeks, right?
No, I took everything with me.
Oh, you took them with you. Okay.
Yeah. No, everything that I could take with me, it's just like I would actually take it and do it. As a matter of fact,
so it was once a day. So with the Sermorelin, once a day injection. That it was like a shot. So you just took that once a day.
I took the EpiPen, yeah, and
EpiPen. And how much? Do you know what the dosage was?
I think it was like 0.8. 0.8, 0.7, 0.5. I think
somewhere between 5 and 8, right? You were doing that, and about 3 times a week. Okay, so 3 times a week, once a day, you were taking this 0.5 to 0.8.
Sermorelin was every day. The only thing that was actually 3 times a day was the GAC injections that were applied at the office.
Okay, so the Sermorelin was every day.
Sermorelin was every day. Yep.
Okay, so 3 times a week when you went to see Amy, she gave you the stuff to do at home. You were pretty much doing every home. You were then monitoring. Is that why you were there?
Exactly.
And one of the questions was, did you monitor blood sugar levels?
Probably she did. I mean, I was kind of like, I mean, she's taking care of me. I mean, I found the right person, so she's taking care of me. So I really don't remember just checking on my sugar levels and my blood. Yeah.
Okay, so at this point through November, you start these somewhere May, June, probably June. You start the peptides. You're still going peptides in November.
No, peptides started kind of like in July, August. On the July, August part. Actually, sorry, peptides started later, because what first started was actually the GAC injections.
The GAC injections,
the food for my muscles. Yeah, that was actually the first thing that we did, and that was almost like, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks. Then the peptides actually kicked in. I mean, she decided we put the peptides on board, and we'll see how everything just rolls out from there. Because what she wanted to do is just like stop the muscle breakdown.
Right.
Just wanted to stop it. So I think by the end of the I think it was already by the end of the year. That was actually, I think, before I went to India.
Okay, so there was one more question. I just want to get a couple questions before you go back to India. How much were the GAC injections? Because the whole bill was like
no. GAC injections was like between $200 and $300.
Okay.
The GAC injections.
Right, but that's not per day.
That was every day that I could get the GAC injections in my arms and shoulders. The ones that I took already to my house, and my brother-in-law used to apply them. I really don't remember how much they were. I can definitely find out.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's good. Okay, so let me see. The other question that we had is, did you have upper motor neuron symptoms like hyperflexia and limb stiffness?
I mean, not that I recall. Stiffness, yes, I would actually just feel it. I think that the fact that I attacked this like at the very early stage of this whole thing. I think that I got like different symptoms. I mean, during the entire process, but at the same time, I was just like so focused and like just moving on. I even remember one time I was snowboarding and my both of my legs just cramped so bad. I remember I couldn't move. I had to kind of like lay down on the snow because the pain was so excruciating. And I remember I said, you know what? No. And I lift myself up and started snowboarding with that pain. I remember just doing it and almost like for 10 minutes, I mean, it was one of the worst things I ever did. But then it went away. And I was so relieved. And it was like, and for some reason, it was kind of like a war that I won against the cramps in my legs. I mean, I still have them today. every night when I sleep, it's like sometimes I wake up and I have like a massive cramp on my legs. But anyway, so going back to where we were, that was actually in 2017, India. India was kind of like the first kind of like opening for me in the sense of spirituality, really deep one. I started connecting the dots as well. I mean, I used to travel a lot to India. One of the times I was actually in India, I was standing and waiting for the driver just to come pick me up at the lobby of a hotel. I was then the guy picks me up and tells me, hey, do you know what the guy is actually just standing right next to you? I was like, oh, the monk that was actually standing right next to me? Yeah, he's the Dalai Lama. I'm like, what? I didn't even know who Dalai Lama was. That was my level of spirituality back then, okay? So just to give you an idea of how I was back then. So then I started realizing that this disease, how they call it in the spiritual world, and it's not just like Harry Potter stuff, okay? It's just like, I mean, everybody tends to say the same thing. It's just like, it's a disease that requires for you to change. If you don't change, the entire disease is going to move the way it's supposed to, right? And we all know the end of this disease. But if you change, you definitely have a good possibility of overcoming this disease. And by change, I mean everything needs to change. I mean, evidently there's something wrong that you've been doing and you don't realize what it is. Either it's on the emotional side, either it's on the spiritual side, or even it's on the physical side. But just definitely it's like there's something that's not clicking. Mostly it's actually on the emotional side. Most of us, I mean, in my case, it was just like so many things kept inside, so many things that I pretended to not to be there, just to move on in my life, pretending that everything was fine and it wasn't, and not really assuming what was really going on with me. And I think that my body said, hey, listen, this is not what we expect from you, and this is what's going to happen if you don't change. So at that point, going back to the physical with Amy in the treatment started to show different parts of improvement, I would say. We started seeing more muscle in my arms. My back was just like holes, big holes of chunks of muscle missing, right? It was kind of like a puzzle. So Amy comes with the idea of saying, hey, why don't we tell John, the massage therapist, that he can definitely just like do all the marks in your back, so he can actually map where is it that you're lacking muscle, and we can inject straight in every single muscle that we need for those muscles. And I was like, okay. So on my Instagram, there's like a lot of pictures. One of those is actually the one that I look like a tiger. I have like so many spots in my back. It was actually the whole mapping that they did. I think I got like 25 injections that day, like in every single part of my body. I mean, in my back, I'm sorry, just to help that develop. And that started helping a lot. I started feeling that I had a little bit more movement, but definitely not the movement that I wanted to. I still, my right arm wasn't like that coordinated. I couldn't wash my hair. I mean, if I wanted to wash my hair, I had to kind of like bend over and it's just like to wash my hair, because otherwise I couldn't lift my arms. So everything was moving forward, but at the same time, I was kind of like saying, okay, perhaps not at the speed that I want to. I want more speed into this whole thing. So Amy is really determined, and she's going to get it done, okay? She's the kind of person that's just saying, I'll do it. I'm going to get this done. So she finds out about this whole thing called follistatin. Follistatin is a myostatin inhibitor. And what it does, it inhibits the myostatin, which is actually the cause for our muscles to break down in our bodies. It's a very strong medicine, but basically what it does, it helps your body to grow muscle and not to break down muscle and generate muscle waste. So you grow. If you actually just like Google follistatin, you're going to find out that this massive bull that it was injected with follistatin, it has like massive amounts of muscle in the entire body. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, this is a holy grail. We're going to get this thing in my body and just definitely it's like I'm going to grow muscle and I'm going to be okay. So we did the treatment 10 days. It was significant, the change. That was actually, I think, one of the turning points in this whole treatment. She knew, and she told me, like, this is something that we cannot use freely nor whenever we want. This is going to be always our kind of like our plan B. If anything happens, if you have a setback or you have we have other spots like coming down, just this is a shock that we can give to your body, so your body can just like outgrow muscles wherever is that they need to. So I remember we did it. It was really good. I'm sorry?
You took the how do you spell follistatin?
Follistatin is Follistatin.
Oh, just the way it sounds. Okay. And you took it for 10 days because it's something you have to be really careful with.
Yep.
And you took it once a day for 10 days?
Yep.
And how much?
I think that was like around $1,000, $800, $900. It's somewhere around that area.
Right. But about how much follistatin is it? So was it a pill or an injection?
It was an injection. It was an injection. Yeah. She
you know what the quantity was?
No, I remember she was the one actually administering, because Amy is very particular with that because she needs to see you. She needs to touch your body. She needs to feel how you, where is the problem? What's going on with your body? She's trying to fix the shell, right? She said, okay, this is your shell. I'm going to try to fix it. Because for some reason, it's like there are parts that are actually coming apart. Well, I'll help you just put everything back together.
Okay.
So, so she was determining the amounts based what she was seeing in me, right? So I remember it helped a lot. I was actually feeling really good. So by the end of the year, I said, okay, I'm going to just go snowboarding again. I need to go snowboard with my son. Because for me, it was kind of like for me, enjoying life was to be with my son. And it still is. So for me to be with him and hang out with him, because he was 11, 12 at that time. 11, yeah. So he was super young, and I knew that like in 2-3 years he's gonna tell me, Dad, I have a girlfriend. Just I'm gonna go out with her, not with you. So I was like, okay, let's try to enjoy as much as we can from him. So we went to Utah, I think, for Thanksgiving, for November. We went there. We had a good time. The four of us, me, my brother-in-law, and my nephew, and my son, of course. And then in December, I said, why don't we come back in December and we spend Christmas here in Utah? I love Park City. Let's go over there. So I remember calling my wife at that time, and my family, my mother, she was here in Miami. She was like, yeah, well, let's go to spend Christmas there. So we spent Christmas. That Christmas was like really interesting. I was feeling better. I was feeling much, much better. I was really enthusiastic. I was like really happy. I was starting to think that we could definitely have a go with this thing. It's like, I started to believe, right, that we can definitely just like beat this whole thing. I was really doing more meditations every single time. I was really filled with this immense feeling of joy of what I brought from India. I was really humble and grateful for everything that was happening in my life. So I was like, okay, I wouldn't go to the part I was even grateful for ALS, because I wasn't at that point. I had my reserve part there for being angry. But definitely just like, I was like, okay, I have the entire family. And for some reason, the whole thing didn't work well because my ex, she couldn't see what was going on with me. And my emotional part was starting to take.
So you were still married at this time. You call her your ex because she's now your ex, but currently she was your wife.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah. Just to get that really clear.
Yeah. Okay. And I remember I came back and we had planned holidays with her family in Argentina. She's from Argentina as well. So I went down to Argentina, and we didn't click in the entire trip. we were already doing like a couples therapy, just to try to help in the communication process. Because sometimes when we're sick or whatever, it's really hard for us to communicate certain things. And we sometimes expect a lot of different things from the other partner, right? The other part just to do certain things and behave a certain way. And they're very proactive partners that actually they really want to just understand everything, do research to try to help the other person. Well, in my case, it wasn't like that. But anyway, I was just like angry because I wasn't expecting what I wanted. And so when I came back, I remember I spoke to my psychologist a lot, and we went again to the couples therapy, and I came to the conclusion that it was better for me just to get separated and leave the house. I was still doing the treatment. I was still, I would say, like getting that critical muscle mass, which was Amy's objective. Just to say, you have the least amount of muscle that you need in your body, at least so we can build up from there. But emotionally, I was a mess. All that I believed, all of my beliefs and my determination in life, which was like, okay, I needed to be married. I had to have my son. I had to have my house. I had to have my car. I had to have a good living. I had to do this. I had to do that. It was just like everything was kind of like being thrown away. Me to make that decision of getting separated was, I think, one of the hardest decisions ever, because it was kind of like breaking with all the models that I had in my mind. For me, it was just like, no, I have to stay here. This is my responsibility. I'm the man of the house. I have to be here. Well, for me, making that decision was really, really hard. And I remember it hit me like really, really badly, emotional wise. And I remember I left the house, but at the same time, I moved actually in an apartment. And I tried to help her see other things that were going on. So she went to see my doctor. She went to see Amy, actually. And that's when she started kind of like realizing, and she started crying because she started realizing what was going on with me. And it was really hard for me. This entire process was like super, super hard. And for her as well. And nevertheless, we still decided that it was good for us to still stay separated because we weren't compatible at that point in our lives. For some reason, I've had experiences that she didn't have. So basically, for me, it was like a lot of information that I processed and I had in my mind that she didn't have, and I was expecting her to act in a certain way as if she had lived those experiences, and that wasn't going to happen. So sometimes it's just like, okay, certain things we need to just like accept. The other people the way they are, and that's it. And not to expect certain things, because otherwise we're going to be like super frustrated, right? And so, I thought at that point that I had certain things taken care of. Of course, when the separation kicked in, everything was kind of like, threw everything out of the window. So I was like, oh my God, this is a new reshuffling and playing again, a new game. And I remember I was still going like three times a week to see Amy. At that point, I think that we were, if not on the same protocol, I think she changed one of the peptides, but the Sermorelin, she changed it for a similar peptide. It had pretty much the same objective. But then she introduced a new peptide. This new peptide was called cerebrolysin. Cerebrolysin, I think, is the other milestone, I think, in this whole process. At the very beginning, it was just kind of like the whole process of realizing that there's something that you can do about your body, okay? The second stage was kind of like the follistatin. That was actually something that stopped my muscle breakdown. And the third milestone, the big milestone, was actually cerebrolysin, which has actually helped me reconnect my neurons, my brain, with my arms, legs, hands, fingers. And I remember when she came with this peptide, she told me, it's like, why don't you start with this? I'm like, okay. I remember starting with that peptide, and 10 days later, I could actually like started to feel like how my fingers started to really come back together in terms of kind of like strength and communication with my brain. It was just insane. And I think that triggered this enthusiasm in me and this happiness in me that was just like, okay, we really got this whole thing. Of course, I mean, and the way I think that you all been listening, I mean, how I've been behaving the past 3 years. I like extreme sports, so of course the next thing I had to do is just like, we need to go snowboarding, and so we went March to Switzerland, and I took my son, and I offered my ex-wife just to come with us because I thought it would be good for us, just try to see how we can behave like in another place with my birthday. I mean, coming on, and I went over there, and it was good, but at the same time, I realized that the emotional part was not good, and for some reason, I got hit with that emotional part during the entire trip, and it was kind of like reliving my past. It was just like saying, okay, this is again something that I need to pretend or not say, because usually we tend to do that kind of stuff. It's like, I'm not going to tell you something because it's not polite. It's not good to say it. It's not just this talk about this whole thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing the same exact thing again. And I'm trying to help her just by coming with us, just to try to be part of something that is actually not there anymore. And I think I was trying to simulate another scenario that didn't exist anymore. And that really took a big toll on me. So I came back April, and I remember the first thing I did is I went to Amy's office, and we had lunch that day. We had scheduled that day lunch. So I came, I think it was on Sunday, and on Monday at noon, I was already having lunch with Amy. So we're sitting having lunch. I'm ordered a steak, I remember. And I'm going to cut the steak. And when I cut the steak, it's like I'm actually have both of my hands, and my right hand's just like falling off. Amy looks at me and she freaks out. She goes like, let's go back to my office. I can't see this. I think we didn't even finish the steak. It's just like left to the office, whatever. She was like, okay, we need to do something about this whole thing. So the way Amy thinks is just kind of like a computer. She starts like ingesting like a lot of information, data, and just like start processing everything. So she was like, okay, high altitude, oxygen deprivation, pressurization from the flight. She was like, you don't have oxygen in your cells. You need oxygen in your cells. I'm like, okay. I mean, for me, it was just like, okay, sure, Amy. It's like, yes.
So during the trip, because now you're in April, you were doing the peptides all but continued, yep, and the GAC injections continually.
Yep.
Okay, so you're doing these like every day.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I remember Amy, she was the first actually introducing this concept. She was like, what you need is NAD. I'm like, what's NAD? I have no clue what you're talking about. And she was like, NAD. She was like, you need energy on your cellular level. You need your cells to metabolize the proper way. You need more energy. And I was like, okay. I mean, for me, everything that she was telling me was like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. Yeah. Because everything that she did with me, it worked. So for me, it was like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. Why don't we get this to work? So I started finding out here in Miami, it's just like really hard just to get NAD. And mostly spas do it because of their like rejuvenation properties on the cellular level, and it keeps people like younger for some reason. So, but the dosage is like super small, and it's quite expensive. It's very expensive actually. So I remember it took her like month and a half just to really figure out where to get the NAD, and I was already kind of like struggling. I was like, okay, are we going to get this whole thing? So we did another session of the follistatin. And with that, we helped like not to have any more muscle breakdown. And I had the time enough just to wait for the NAD.
Right. And so you did, before you did 12 days of follistatin, and how much did you do this time?
10 days. It's always 10 days. Yeah, okay. 10 days. Yeah. And after those 10 days of doing follistatin, I was actually feeling quite good. I mean, because my body wasn't just like crumbling down. And then we did the NAD. First time we did the NAD. The first time we did, I think it was 4,500 cc's divided into 3 days, 1,500 each day. And it was actually a slow drip. So basically each day was a 12-hour IV day. I remember the first time that actually I did NAD, you get high on NAD. It's just like your body is so toxic, and NAD helps your entire cellular system just to get rid of all the free radicals. So you're going to get dizzy, you're going to get nausea, you're going to get like high, because it's just like your body is going through this entire process. I mean, can you imagine like your cells, they're starving, they need food, and all of a sudden it's like you inject them with food. So basically your entire cells are just like kind of dying, and then all of a sudden you just like throw lots of food to these cells. They just like, they explode in your body, and you feel like jolts of energy just like going through up and down your body. And I remember sometimes those jolts are like so strong that you even feel like the pressure like in your chest. In my case, I used to feel like the pressure in my chest and my back, my entire spine. It was just like insane. And I remember that first session of NAD, that was just like mind blowing. For me, it was just like, I mean, before and after. And the whole combination of the entire treatment that we were doing plus the NAD was just like the holy grail. That was actually the holy grail for me.
Okay, so how much NAD did you take over what period of time?
The first time, I think it was like 4,500 cc's, and I think it's milligrams. So basically, the NAD, I think it was the same amount of, it's like 10 and 100. So it's kind of like, it was 4,500 cc's of saline solution, and it was equivalent of milligrams of NAD.
Okay.
I think it's
and you did it, and over what period of time? Like how many hours did you? This was an IV drip, is that right?
Yeah, this is an IV that I did for 3 days the first time.
Okay, so you did you did an IV drip. How many hours were you on the IV?
12 hours every day.
How many?
12 hours.
12. Okay, so you did. So you took, because I know if you take NAD too fast, you get nauseous. So
yeah.
So you did 12 hours a day for 3 days. 4,500 milligrams a day. So the total was about 12, 13, 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So 13.5 the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. And I hate to ask you cost, but I'm going to ask you because everybody wants to know.
Cost is around,
for those 3 days.
I think it's like 3,500.
3,500 for the 3 days. Okay. But it's like 1,000 a day because it was a smaller amount. Okay. Yeah. Great.
And so we started doing that NAD treatment like every 2 months. I think the first we did like every month and a half, and then we started kind of just spacing it out a little bit, because that's when you start feeling like the last NAD IV that I did, for example, it's like I did it, and I felt like I didn't felt those jolts that basically tells you that your body's kind of like absorbing this whole thing and just like working. So that means that my body is just like really clean in levels of toxicity, you know. So I mean, we can space a little bit more the IV on the NAD IVs. Yeah. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, Patricia.
Sorry, thank you. No. I was on mute. So what specifically, you said you were having fewer toxins in your body now.
Yep.
So you can space the NAD injections further apart. But what did you do to detox in the meantime? Or is it just happening naturally?
Yeah, it happened naturally. I mean, in my case, for example, it's like, I didn't tell you, but in February of 2017, that was actually when this episode happened with the near-death experience, I quit smoking. I remember I was taking Xanax like every day in order just to function. So I quit Xanax as well. So I pretty much like left everything that I was taking. I was even calling Amy. It's like, if I have a headache, so I call her. It's like, hey, listen, it's like, can I take an ibuprofen? It's like, no. Why would you take an ibuprofen? It's like, because my head hurts. Why does it hurt? Tell me what you did during the day. So I was telling her, it's like, okay, you need more hydration. Take more water. Because usually what we do is just like take an ibuprofen. It's okay. The pain goes away. But we are not solving the really thing that's actually going on in our bodies. So in this case, it was just like, okay, take some water, eat some food, do this, that. And she was really a good guide for me. I mean, during the past 2.5 years, because she was really like pinpointing each and every single thing that I was doing. So for me, it was just like this complete change in way that I was behaving before. I mean, I would eat a lot of flour, like, or sugars, dairy. And today I don't even take dairy. I just don't. I don't drink milk. I don't eat cheese. I eat occasionally cheese, like for social events when there's like some little cheeses just to eat, whatever, and that's it. But I just don't. Flour, practically nothing. I just don't eat bread. Just and then sugars. I used to have like this huge sweet tooth, like big time. I would eat chocolate every night, and for some reason, it's like I would eat occasionally, but it's not. I don't have the craving today.
Okay, so you're off of dairy, you're off of flour, and you're off of sugar pretty much, except for occasionally.
Yeah. So today, my regular food is actually vegetables with some protein. That's what I eat. Yeah. If I drink milk, I drink almond milk or cashew milk with coffee. I used to drink a lot of coffee. Right now, I just only drink one coffee every morning. What I do like, and that was for me like really, really good, was actually the celery juice. I mean, I don't know. I love it. People hate it in the morning. So some people hate it. I just love it. And for some reason, it makes me feel like super, super good. I used to have like a lot of digestive issues, like just heartburns and stuff like that. And today, it's like, I don't know, they're gone. So it really helps. And
So do you do the celery juice every day?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it heals. The celery juice heals the gut. That's the whole purpose of it. So your gut, you feel like you're not having those digestive issues anymore.
No.
Okay.
So, so basically, I mean, 2018 was kind of like the year of big changes in my life. I bottomed on June, I think it was 2018, because right after the trip from Switzerland, because when I was like feeling like super bad, like I had the setback. Everything was just like going down, and I mean, I think we spoke about this, but one of the things that when I was diagnosed, it crossed my mind just to say, why am I still here? Why? I mean, why am I putting the people that I love through all this pain and suffering? And I came to that point, and during that month, and I remember for some weird reason, I had this thing in my mind of Sedona, Arizona. And I remember going back to my computer, just put Sedona on the Google search string, and it popped up the Sedona method. And Sedona method is a guy out of Arizona that actually put together certain methods that you can definitely just do in order for you to let go of certain things and just to overcome certain issues in your life, right? And I said, okay, you know what? I was so down that I was like, you know what? Before doing anything stupid, I'm just going to watch this video. And I remember I watched the video, and the video was How to Let Go. That was actually the name of the video. And the video, it starts, the first 5 minutes actually of the video starts of saying everything that happens in your life, you have to welcome it, either bad or good. For me, it was impossible to understand. Impossible. But then, I don't know if I just really, came to that point in my life in which it was just like so much death, so much suffering that I was really about to make a radical decision or just like trying to believe something different. And I remember, even though I was doing all these treatments and all those things, I think they were showing certain changes in my body and certain behaviors, and I was feeling really proud of all the accomplishments that I've reached on a physical level. But I think on the emotional part, there was so much more healing to do. And I remember that video that night, for some reason, it opened my mind. It was just that day that you say that there's a day before and after. Well, I think that was the day. That was the day that I decided that I wanted to live. That is the day that I decided just wanted to give myself a chance in this life. That is the day that I say I need to love myself, and I really need to put myself together in every aspect of myself. And that is the day that I say I'm going to be grateful for everything that happens in my life. And if this happened in my life, it's for a reason, and I have to deal with this whole thing. And I after that point, I think everything started to make sense and click so much better. I remember that with my ex, we had like a lot of ups and downs and discussions and arguments. So at that point, it was like, no, we don't discuss anymore because there's actually no need. I mean, you have your points of view, I have my points of view. We're just going to continue in life. We're both parents. We have a son. We love him so much, and we both are going to love him so much. So that's it. We're not compatible, and that's it. Let's move on. Next thing was, of course, still dealing with my condition, still doing all my treatments with Amy. Even today, I still do all my treatments with Amy. But then I remember my ex, she called me one day. She's like, okay, there's a person called Father Matthew here in Miami. And you can definitely just go and talk to him. I'm like, okay, well, he's a healer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet him. So I went over there and actually I met this guy. It was actually in a guy's house. They would invite like 300 people to this place. There was a bunch of people like in this house gathered all together, and there was this priest. This priest is actually out of India. Really interesting person, really interesting. And for some reason, he started talking about the concept of actually reprogramming your mind. And he was saying it in a different way. He was just like saying, okay, we can heal ourselves. It's like, I cannot heal you, but you can definitely heal yourself. And so he did like certain samples of things that he accomplished and whatever. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, this is like, yeah, you have to believe in this type of thing or whatever. So I remember he spoke to me because he looked at me and I was in really bad shape. Not physically, but I was in a bad shape emotionally, I would say. It was just like not well. But when I saw him, he looked at me. He was like, why are you dressing like that? Why do you like look like so everything's so dark within you? And I'm like, I don't know. And it's like, okay, let me do one thing. I'm going to give you this CD and you listen to the CD, okay? But you listen very carefully and listen very well. I'm like, okay. So I played that CD in my car for almost 45 days. And that CD was just like words of saying like, I'm going to heal my nerves. I'm going to heal my body. I'm going to heal my brain. I'm going to heal my arms. I'm going to heal my fingers. I'm going to heal my legs. It was just like repetitive sentences that would talk about healing yourself, healing yourself, healing yourself, healing yourself, healing yourself. I did that for 45 days. I think, I got it like so inside of me that for some reason my body just, I don't know, I'm not going to say magically because it wasn't any magic, but so for some reason my predisposition, my attitude towards this disease was completely different. I felt like I was like giving this challenge and I can definitely just like really deal with it. And I mean, all the different things that I did previous to this was just like all the different paths that I analyzed, studied, and put into place, just to make sure that I can definitely overcome this whole thing. So after that, I think that the whole thing, right, in my separation, my big emotional issues in my life, of course, my physical treatment, my spiritual opening, and of course, my emotional balance that I was actually getting by the end of 2018 was kind of like the trigger for everything just to try to fall into place. Let me tell you that by the end of 2018, I still couldn't move my right arm properly. And today, September of 2019, I actually started 2019 moving my right arm. And today I'm just like here and I can stop waving all the time. It's just like, the guy actually waves all the time, uses his hands, and it's just like, yeah, I'm here. Because, I mean, they would give me a glass in a restaurant or whatever that I was sitting, and I was just like thinking, which hand can I use? Is my left hand gonna be able to hold the glass? Is my right arm gonna work without doing any weird movements? I was always kind of trying to think the whole movement, and I remember in 2019 was the first year in which I started kind of doing things without thinking that much, So, I mean, today, yes, of course, I continue with my treatment. Oh, yes, absolutely. Do I continue the visits like 3 times a week to Amy? No, I don't. But we became really good friends. So we speak usually and occasionally. We got out to lunch, of course, and we speak a lot. And she understands as well that even though she's like very professional and very determined when she wants something, at the same time she understands that there's a very important emotional aspect of this whole thing, and that we need to pay attention to it, right? And I think, I mean, right now I find myself like just trying to help as many people as possible, because I think it's really hard. It's really hard just to understand that this is a change that we need to do inside of ourselves. And once we do that change, everything starts to click differently. And of course, I mean, today I call it the treatment. For me, is my grounding. I continue to do it because why? Because it's just like, yeah, this is what I can touch. This is what it's concrete, and I can grasp it, and just like say, this is what I'm doing in order just to fix my body. But what else am I doing in order just to fix my soul? What else am I doing to fix my emotions? What else am I doing just to fix my energy levels? I mean, I have to do something. And I realize that those layers exist. So if they exist, I mean, we have to listen to those as well. It's that, I mean, the solution is not going to be just on one end. The solution is not going to come just by doing this physical treatment.
Okay, that's a big one, and we hear that over and over again, and I can't stress that enough. So let's go to the NAD, because it's interesting that you were doing all these things, all these treatments, and having some effect, even though you were obviously still couldn't move your arm, things like that, and yet you said June of 18 was which was almost a year after you started these treatments, was your worst time.
Yep.
So that was the time when you're like, I'm just putting everybody through this, and like you just wanted to give up. And it's interesting to me that was a year into it.
But do you know why, right? Because it's like saying, like today, it's like I tell you, okay, let's assume that you have ALS and you start a treatment and you start getting hopes of this treatment, and it's actually starting to show certain changes in your body. And at the same time, everything starts to change. Like you start to smile a little bit more, you start to interact with more people. We start to realize that, yes, I can recover my life again and not be just a slave of this disease and just like be like all immersed into this whole thing. So all of a sudden you realize that you can recover part of what you've lost. And then all of a sudden it's like everything gets taken away in 2 days. For example, when I went to Switzerland and I had the setback, and that setback for me was just like, okay, that was just my break in order for me just to say I can really overcome this. And that was the other, for me, that setback was just like, okay, this is the wake-up call saying, hey, I'm still here and I'm still going to take you with me. And that for me was just like the ultimate hit in my face, a slap in my face, big as it gets. And then I realized, no, it's not. And definitely it's just like, yes, there's something that we can do in order just to overcome it. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was so much more empowering, because today, actually the last question that I remember my psychologist asked me, it was like, what are you afraid of? And I was like, nothing. And I was like, no, you should be afraid of something. And say, I'm not afraid of anything. And to be very honest with you, I'm not.
Oh, you're not afraid of dying, obviously, because you've been there.
No, exactly.
But are you afraid of being disabled again?
I think it's not going to happen. I'm not afraid. I'm just like, and if it happens, it's because I mean, it needs to happen. I mean, not because, of course, I'm going to do everything possible just to, be as whole as I can be, just to be with my son and share as much as I can with him. But if that happens, well, that happens. I mean,
okay. So tell me, what is your protocol right now? So you've been doing this for about a year. You started with the GAC and the other things, but then you didn't start to the NAD until the middle of 18.
Yeah.
So now, how often are you doing the NAD?
NAD, I'm doing it like every 2 months.
Every 2 months. So you do every 2 months. You do a 2-day injection, right? Of how much?
1,000 cc's.
1,000 cc's.
Each. day.
Each day. So it's basically 2,000 cc's.
2,000 cc's.
Over
Yep.
2 days. Okay. And how long are you doing the IVs? How many hours?
Right now, I think they come down to almost like 6.5, 7 hours.
Okay, 6 to 7 hours.
Yeah, because I can take a faster speed on the dripping. I used to do like 100. Like I think the speed was 100, and now I can go up to 250. So it's kind of like just pretty much cut the double. It's not exactly cut to half because I mean you start. It's a progression. You start with 100 all the time. It's just and then you start like increasing the volume of the dripping. So the speed of the dripping. So yeah.
Okay, so basically since 2018, for the last year and a little bit, you've been doing about every two. You started out doing it once a month, and then you increased it to once every 2 months.
I started a month and a half, and then we started to space it out to 2 months. And it's actually not exact. You know, it's not like we do the first NAD and then we do in 2 months exactly we do the next NAD. I mean, I still see Amy like every 2 weeks at least. So she sees me and she goes like, okay, I think we could definitely just like benefit from this or benefit from that. And I go like, okay, or not. Perhaps no. I mean, let's wait a little bit more. And it's like, because of course NAD is very expensive. So at the same time, it's like, if I can get rid of NAD, that would be a massive like expense item that I can take off my financials. So, but at the same time, it's like, if I can do it, I'll do it all the time. I mean, because I can be grateful enough, I think, with Amy, with everything that she did for me. Yeah.
Right. So you're still taking the GAC injections?
Yeah. Well, I stopped for I think it was like 6 or 7 months, and then when was this? This last May, I think it was May. Yeah, I think it was in May of this year that I spoke to Amy because my hand, even though it's like way stronger and much more build, still the muscle on right here is still like small. It's actually not as developed as it should be. So I mentioned this to Amy. Hey, listen, Amy, why don't we do like GAC injections in this muscle right here so we can see an improvement? And she was like, oh, yeah, of course. Let's give it a try. So I actually did that GAC injection in my hand. It hurt so much, because right now it's like I have more sensitivity in my arms and everywhere. So compared to the initial ones that I got, it's like for me, the other ones were just like a walk in the park. And this second one was just like, whoa. So, and now that I started doing the GAC injections again in my hand, I said, why don't you take a look at my back and my chest to see, and my arms just to see if everything's just kind of like symmetrical. Because when you start kind of using follistatin or peptides, you start growing muscle, or for example, it's like you don't grow muscle, but everything grows. So meaning that every muscle in your body is going to grow. So certain muscles that weren't affected, they're going to grow. And when they outgrow the other muscles, you know how it works. Actually, one actually pulls, the other one actually pushes. So basically, if you grow this muscle bigger than the other one in the lower end, what's going to happen? The other one's going to get weaker. It's not going to get bigger.
Right.
So you wanted to see like, okay, how, if I'm imbalanced and how we can definitely just like bring back to balance. So by pinpointing and doing GAG injections specific in certain muscles, what we can do is just like give more strength to those muscles and more food for those muscles to grow.
Okay. So you are doing the GAC injection, but not every day?
Not every day. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're doing them. It's more of an occasional thing as needed.
Right.
Okay. And what about the peptides?
Peptides, the one that I'm taking right now, it's called tesamorelin.
Oh, so you've changed from the other one to tesamorelin.
All of them are very similar. I mean, they stimulate my growth hormone to produce more muscle. Okay, the only difference between one and the other, I think it's very technical. I mean, Amy knows it. It's just like, I mean, one is just like grows like all the muscles in the body. The other one is just like more specifically to certain parts of the body, and the other one is more specifically when it comes to outbalance one muscle with the other.
And how much are you taking of the peptides? How often?
Peptides, I'm doing like every 3 days. I'm sorry, no, I do 3 days in a row, 1 day break, and 3 more days. So the packs they come with 6 injections.
Okay.
And what I do is I take 3 injections, 1 day off, 3 injections. It's just a week.
Are you worried because you're taking these that then your body will produce fewer of them? Because that's what happens a lot of times. You take things but then your body makes less because, I don't need them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we started doing with Amy, because Amy, she was like, okay, I don't want you on medication. I just don't want you. It's like one of the things that we did at the very beginning was like, I was like so stressed out with this whole thing that I was like, okay, when can we do a new nerve conduction test just to see my nerves are really firing properly right now? So she was like, well, I don't know, perhaps, I don't know, next year or the other year, whenever you want. It's like, okay, well, so by the end of 2018, I go like, why don't we do a nerve conduction test right now that I'm feeling so much better? And she goes like, well, I mean, if you want, you can do it. I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel good? I'm like, I feel great. It's like, okay, so what do you want to do a nerve conduction test? You want to test something to go where? Like just to go to the Western medicine world again and say, hey, listen, my nerves are okay and they've been healed. It's like, it doesn't work like that. It's like, if you want to just like still be compared like in that world, just go back to that world and it's going to work differently. It's not, I mean, the tools that we're having right now to measure certain things, they're not appropriate to measure the treatment we're doing today here. So if you want to go to the stress of doing another nerve conduction test with the implications that has on your emotional stress, what if it comes wrong? What are you going to do? You're going to go like down again the rabbit hole saying, oh, I still have this whole thing inside of me. It's like, are you feeling good? Are your muscles behaving properly? Are your arms moving properly? Then just go ahead and live your life and enjoy your life. And that was kind of like, I really liked her approach because for me, it was just like another doctor would have seen, okay, we're going to retest. We're going to retest. We're going to retest. We're going to retest. And that stress, I think, is like so demanding, so draining that it really consumes one from the inside, and it just doesn't let you live, you know. And I think that I'm not going to say that we don't have to pay attention to our symptoms because I'm really aware of my symptoms, and during this journey of this 2.5 years so far, I can tell you that I know exactly the different types of pain that I can suffer. And I can differentiate what is a pain on my nerves, what is a pain on my muscles, what is a pain or something that's called soreness or something that's called just like a strain, and differentiate clearly what are the different types of symptoms that I feel in my body. I can even feel like the numbness in certain parts of my body when I can say, oh, there's something wrong here. If I have serious amounts of stress today, which I avoid by all means, but sometimes they just happen. And I feel it. I feel like in the fasciculations. I feel like in the tension in my muscles. And that's when I say stop, that this is not something that I can deal with. That's it. And I just like take off. Literally.
Okay. So when you're in a state of stress, you absolutely feel it immediately.
Exactly. Immediately. I feel the fasciculations again. It's insane. I mean, I remember my fasciculations were just like absurd. I was just like sitting here talking to you, and you would see like my arms just like twitching all the time, and they wouldn't stop.
So are they stopped now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the only time you have fasciculations now is when you're in a state of stress.
Yes. I think it's a friendly reminder. Yeah.
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 What about muscle cramping?
Muscle cramping, I still have muscle cramping, but last week, actually, for the first time in the last 2.5 years, I went out and I was able to run 800 meters, which is half a mile. For me, was something that I wasn't expecting. I mean, every time that I was actually going to go for a run, I couldn't coordinate my legs with my movement of my arms, and it was just weird. And I would get tired, like giving like 15 steps. I was just like fall, literally, and
Right.
And I couldn't do it. And today, which actually started last week, I was literally crying when I did it. I just came back and was like, oh my god! It's like I was able to run 800 meters for me is just like an eternity. And
are you taking magnesium supplements?
I don't know. I can definitely check on the IVs that because
Oh, okay.
I do like right now it's actually I think every 15 days, but I used to do like an IV, which it's
Like a vitamin and mineral ID.
yes, correct.
Okay.
And it has glutathione as well.
Okay. So you're taking glutathione
Yeah.
IV every couple of weeks.
Yep.
So just to get your protocol right this minute, and this is sort of ongoing, and you're hoping that you're going to start spacing this out, and it's going to be less and less, right? As you heal.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but currently, every 2 weeks, you're doing a glutathione IV.
Yep.
You're doing NAD injections about every 2 months.
Yep.
Once every 2 months. You're taking peptides 3 days, then 1 day off, then 3 days. So that's still happening. And
Yep.
then occasionally you're taking GAC injections.
Yep.
Along with, obviously, you're taking a really good diet and drinking a lot of fluids, like water.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else that's in your protocol?
Um,
Yeah, grain-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. Yeah, so we got that. And
Yeah.
water. Good.
and yes, definitely just like dedicate at least once a year to some really good spiritual retreat. I think I need it. It's just like every year. It's kind of like a friendly reminder that I have to do every year just to reconnect and see if everything's just going the proper way.
Right.
For me, it's just to be out for, I don't know, 3 days, 4 days. It doesn't have to be like, an eternity. It's like 3-4 days that you take just for yourself, just to reconnect with yourself. I mean, it's better when you have like a guide that, takes you and guides you through the entire process. It's fantastic. But if you don't, just like by the fact of meditating, like at least every day, like 10 minutes, it's just
right.
like,
So you're meditating every day.
Yeah.
A minimum of 10 minutes. How do you do it often, like in a whole hour, or not? You don't go that much.
No, I did a couple ones, but it's like special ones when I don't know. There's like special guided meditation. Sometimes it's just like they do like an hour and a half, and those are really nice because sometimes they just like really tell you something different. It's like that something that you weren't used to hear, and for example, just like. Because, there's a lot of science behind meditation. It's not just like weird stuff that everybody goes and chants something weird, things, and that's it. There's some really good science behind it. And when we start talking about like cells and how cells behave in your bodies and basically how we interpret certain things and how our emotional system works, towards certain feelings, then definitely it's like, it's really good to understand our bodies, And for me, it's just like, it's fascinating. I take it as it's a really good source of information every time that I do it.
And then also during the day, another part of your protocol, so you're meditating every day, whether it's only for 10 minutes or for longer, you're also seems to be throughout the day, you are pretty much grateful, you're in gratitude, you're not angry anymore.
No.
That seems to be gone.
Yeah. The only thing that I cannot get rid of is road rage. And here in Miami, absurd. It's the only thing, but it's just a tiny little second. It's just that.
Don't ever drive with me.
But that's the only thing I can get off.
But so it's a tiny second. So wait a minute, it comes up and it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't really road rage. You're just starting to road rage.
I don't hold a grudge. I think the last time that I hold a grudge, it was, I don't know, 2.5 years ago, I would say. Yeah.
You also mentioned, and again, I'm including this as part of your protocol because it's just as important as anything you do physically. You said you've stopped taking responsibility and sort of trying to rescue people.
Yeah. Yeah. I realize that everybody has its own journey, and everybody needs to walk its own path. And for me to help other people, sometimes I think it's actually selfish for myself just to say, even though I'm helping somebody else, it's just like depriving that person of walking their own path just by trying to impose a certain, I don't know, opening or speed into their process. And for me, it's just like saying, okay, I can guide you, I can help you in whatever it is that you think that you need me or need guidance for. If you think that I'm the person appropriate just to do so. If not, then no. But I will never impose anything. The only thing I can do is just to give a good recommendation, and that's it. But at the same time, it's just like it's up to each individual just to walk their own path.
Right. Now you've also said, and again, you've released all this trauma, and that was one of the things that you did in India. You had this past trauma that you were just
Oh yeah, yeah,
you had suppressed,
yeah,
and you just released it,
yeah.
and that was part of it. And then, are you avoiding, like I call it stuffing things, but you stuff things inside, and are you now not doing that anymore?
Not anymore.
New things that come up. How are
Right.
you dealing with new? Because obviously we keep having traumas. I mean, things keep happening to us. Life goes on. How do
Yeah.
you deal with those things now differently than the way you dealt with them before?
I've learned how to say no. I think that was actually one of the biggest issues that I had. Um, I feel whenever it's something that I'm doing that is actually going against pretty much of what I discovered in the past 2.5 years, I feel like the symptoms of the fasciculations and stuff like that. So for me, it's just like very easy to identify when something is not the right thing, And for example, it's like, let's assume that you need help, and I'm here and I'm helping you, and you need to do this, Patricia, and you have to take this. Did you take your medicine last year? And on the second or third time that we speak again, I'm going to feel that it's up to me just to really call you to follow up and make sure that you're doing this, and that. And it's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility. And it's going to be you, the one that wants to heal. So if you need me, and if you want to call me because you feel sad, because you feel like you're down the rabbit hole and you don't know how to get out of there, well, definitely just like you can count on me. You can call me, and I'm going to be there for you and talk to you and help you as much as I can. But definitely, it's not going to be. I understood that it's not my responsibility. I mean, even though you can do something that's wrong, but it's unfortunately there's nothing I can do to change your mind. You're going to change your mind because you're willing to change your mind and because you're open to change your mind. So, I mean, most of the times we hear this saying of like going with the flow or let things flow. And for me, my life today is as clear as that. It's just like it needs to flow, and that's it. And I'm trying to basically, reinsert myself at work right now. I'm starting to go like 3 times a week to the office with my business partner, slowly but surely. And I told him, hey, listen, it's like one of the things that I cannot deal with, it's stress. Unfortunately, I can't, and I don't know how I'm going to react. So I'm fortunate enough just to have my own company, so I can definitely just to say if there's something wrong, it's like I can say I can stand up and leave. And I'm very grateful for that. But at the same time, it's just like for me to say, okay, let's start dealing in a different way. It's really hard for me sometimes just to deal with perhaps my mom or my sister, because what they know from me is the guy that used to be in the past. And sometimes people get drawn into that, just saying like, we want the Gunter that used to be in the past. Well, that Gunter, that problem solver dude is gone. That guy is dead. This new guy is actually here. And who knows exactly that what he needs to do and what he needs to take care of in his life. And it's his health, which is the most important thing. And the second most important thing is his son. And that's it. Everything else comes and goes. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've got a whole bunch of questions here, so I'm going to actually
Okay.
go through the questions, okay? So people can actually type in the questions. So one of the questions is, I think we answered this one. How many injections and what frequency? We did that one already. Okay, now the next one is the IV drip more effective than pills? And I think this is for the NAD.
Yeah, pills get absorbed by the gut, and IV goes straight into your bloodstream. So definitely, the absorption level of your bloodstream it's instantly. So while the other one needs to be processed through your gut. So and if your gut is actually toxic, then definitely you're not going to be able to absorb, as much nutrients as you want.
Okay, and then the other one came up. So the peptides, your 313. How often do you repeat it? I think that's continual. You're still taking those every day.
Yeah.
Do you ever skip? Do you ever take a week break or 2 weeks break on that?
Well, I do. I do, but what I do is actually, it's like, for example, it's like I had to pick up my peptides like 10 days ago. And for some reason I said, I'm not going to pick them up. I'm not going to pick them up. But intentionally, Amy knows this. Of course she does. But since we both are in the same boat of saying try to get rid of everything that I've been taking just to see how my body reacts. Because right now my body is in really good shape. I mean, my body is actually fully functional. It moves. It reacts. I'm not going to say I can sprint, but I mean, I still. I mean, I can jog, and for me, it's enough. It's okay. But basically, she said, okay, let's see how your body responds if we start taking things off you. So we're doing this like, okay, you know what? I'm going to start tomorrow with the peptide, whatever, and yeah.
Okay, and then somebody asked, cerebral lysin, do you still take it?
Yeah, I take it daily.
Okay, so you're taking it every day. Okay.
Yeah, cerebral lysin is one of those peptides that, for me, it worked wonders. I've read a lot of different things of cerebral lysin. It's usually used for dementia because of how it actually just like helps the health of the neurons in our brain, and but apparently it's been recommended for ALS treatment in the past I think 2 years. I've seen like 2 people taking it, but apparently they take it as a pill. They don't take it as an injection. I mean,
so you're taking it as an injection?
All the peptides that I take, all of them are injections. All of them. The only thing that I took as a pill during the first initial stages was resveratrol. That was just like the pill of resveratrol, and that was it. But then,
okay. And what quantity of cerebral lysin are you taking every day?
I think it's 10, but 10 of the little insulin syringes.
10 milliliters, okay.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like you got holes in your body because you're taking all these injections?
No, holes in my body because of injections. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there's something I actually skipped. I didn't tell you about that. I did a treatment with an acupuncturist here in Miami. This doctor, he called himself a doctor. He was just like, he had this idea of saying, okay, I can give you injections of sugary water, which is
right. So just to so everybody has a little bit of, Gunter also tried things that didn't work, and I think this is really important. This is just a process, and when you're, and so this is just an example of something he tried that didn't work. So go ahead.
So
and he would not recommend again either.
Exactly, yeah. So whoever's actually like thinking of doing this, it's like, well, my experience was like really, really bad. If your experience is good, by all means, just go ahead and do it. But I had this doctor who said like he had this theory of saying, okay, if I give you dextrose, like with your nerves, it's pretty much like the same thing that we do with the GAC. It's just GAC food to your muscles. Well, dextrose is going to give food to your nerves, so your nerves are going to be healthy. I'm like, okay, let's give it a try. So the first time that he did it, I felt like, but I was feeling better. I don't know if it was my excitement or my willingness to just like feel better, but it lasted for like, I think what's like 2 days. The third day it was back to square one. Then second day, so basically what was the treatment? The treatment was like injections of dextrose injected straight on the nerve. So you can imagine that it was really painful, right? So I think at one point I had between 200 and 300 injections on a session.
Yeah.
And I did it for 2 months, and I had 2 sessions a week of those injections. So now come back to your questions, like how many holes I have.
Okay, nothing compared to that.
That I think that was January and February of 2018, I think it was, yeah. And it was insane. That was insane.
Okay, so I got another question. They want to know how much is your protocol. What we're gonna do is we are gonna post this on YouTube.
Yep.
And we're gonna put the protocol in the description so everybody can see it. That's probably the easiest thing to do. And but they want kind of getting an idea of how much a month you are actually spending on your treatment right now.
Right now, I'm gonna just split the NAD like just to give you.
NAD is like half, and the other everything else.
I'm gonna give you like a monthly number, so everybody can have an idea. It's considering NAD like 1,500 of NAD, then adding another 1,500 for the 2 peptides, and I'm sorry, cerebral and the other peptide, and GAC injections of 600, almost like 3,600.
Okay, so 3,600 a month right now.
Yeah.
And your goal obviously is to get that down because you would like to not have to do that anymore, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but right now that's what's keeping you
Yeah.
well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's good. I mean, and believe me, that's not as expensive as a lot of other things. So it's
No, exactly. It's like all the different, the other things that they told me about. It was just like, I think it was like immunoglobulin IV treatment that they do here with the University of Miami. It was just like the IV was like $20,000. It was just like saying like, okay, we don't know if it's going to work or not. So I'm like, okay, just
skip that. You also did, which you didn't tell me. You kind of skipped a few things that you tried that were kind of significant. Like you said, you went down to this healer that you had to walk all these miles to.
yeah, I did a pilgrimage since I wanted to connect, right? I really wanted to, dig deeper into my spiritual world. So I had this friend of mine. He lost a daughter at a younger age, and he was completely like overwhelmed with this whole thing. So for some reason, he had this idea of saying, "I'm gonna put together a pilgrimage out of Jujuy in northern part of Argentina down to Salta, to the next province, and it's 120 kilometers, which is like 180 miles. No, I'm sorry, it's 80 miles. So basically, it's just like, okay, it's walking from one province to the other, and it ends.
What month is this? What month was this?
This was, I think, it was November. No, August or September of 2017. I think it was.
Oh, so before you went to India?
No, I'm sorry, 2018. I'm sorry.
Okay, end of 2018. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I was just looking at the pictures that I have from the trip. It's like, it tells me the date. That's why. So, and I did this trip, and for some reason, there's this healer on top of the hill. It's a lady, and she, for some reason, she connects with the Virgin Mary, and she places her hands on the people that are there, and she helps them heal. I mean, let me tell you that 50,000 people go every weekend to this place in Argentina. I'm not saying like 300 people, 200 people, 5 people, or 30 people. 50,000 people. They go up on a hill every weekend to be touched by this lady. And she has a very special energy. She's seriously out of this world. So I remember just going up the hill, and all of a sudden, like when I get there, my right foot was just like miserable. I could barely walk, seriously. And I remember I did the whole walk, and when I got there, one of the helpers of this lady, she goes and tells me, "Are you Gunter?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Okay, we were expecting you." I'm like, "Okay." So I went and spoke to her. And I remember she looked at me and she was like, "Okay, what is it that you have?" And I told her, "Well, I was diagnosed with ALS, and they gave me 2 to 3 years of life." And I remember she looked at me, she's like, "Okay, why are you seeing all bad things? Why are you focused in bad things? Just focus on the good things." And I'm like, "What good things?" It's like, just focus on the good things. And it didn't make sense at that point. I was just like, what should I do? Just like stop watching horror movies, start watching more comedies. That was that. I mean, that was my depth at that point. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, just gonna do it. And I did it. And I started changing. I'm sorry, it was 2017. No, it wasn't 2018.
So this is in 17 you did this. So this was early on. Early on. And then you actually had 2 people because you said you had trouble walking. So that was like you had a person on either side of you.
Yeah.
You had your business partner and another friend go with you.
Was a business partner and a friend? Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So did you realize at that point how negative you actually were?
No. I was so immersed, I think, in my... That's why when sometimes I talk to people and I tell them, "Hey, listen, it's like, this is your comfort zone." And people look at you sometimes like, "No, this is not my comfort zone, because comfort zone should be nice." No, not necessarily could be nice. It's like, there are really bad places and you can be, but you feel comfortable because you know how much fear you have of those places. And that's where you feel that that's your comfort zone. And sometimes you have to really I mean, fight it, just to get out of that comfort zone and find another one, which is much better than the older one. And I think that's pretty much what happened. It's just like for me, just to right now, if I look at from like, if I turn around and look back, I'm like, oh God, oh God. I mean, how can I, how I couldn't see this whole thing? It's just coming down to this. And I mean, and all the people that I saw, like, and all the people that I talked to, they all came to the same conclusion. And it was just about changing. It was about things that I had to adjust, things that I had to make, and my changes that I had to make in my entire body. And by entire body, I don't mean like physically, like every single part of my body, my mind, my emotions, my spirit, my energy, my everything. I mean, and everything needed to change. It's just for me just to really find my real purpose here. It's just, I don't know. That's the way I see it today, and that's why. I mean, I have only gratitude and love. And when I say it, is sometimes people look at me. It's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's it. I mean, and we are here. I mean, the only purpose that we are here is basically just to interact, love, and just to communicate with other people. And that's enjoy the experience, right? And sometimes, I mean, one of the books that really helped me was actually the one from Eckhart Tolle. It's The Power of Now. I read it, I think, so many times, and it helped me so much, because sometimes we tend to forget about the book. So I actually grab the book and go back again. It's because we tend to, and particularly with this disease, it's like we're always thinking how much time, how much is going to happen, and it generates a lot of anxiety. And if it generates a lot of anxiety, it's going to take a lot of your mind today. And we need to be more present. We need to deal with our issues today, not the ones that we still don't know that they're going to happen. And that's, again, just like, I mean, people looked at me back then and they used to tell me, well, you've been diagnosed with terminal disease. They give you 2 to 3 years of life. So it's like, that this is going to happen. No, I don't.
Yeah. Now, you also mentioned, because there's a lot of things that you didn't mention, but that's fine. But one of the ones that I'd like you to kind of repeat, because it sort of tells the ALS story, you said that one of the healers or one of the people that you talked to kind of talked about your body, you were living your life this way, but your spirit wanted to go here.
Yeah.
And so tell that story. And that ALS was really all about, you look, if you're going to keep living your life this way, your body's just going to deteriorate and get let go, because your spirit needs to go over here. And so the only way you can heal this disease is to actually start living the way your spirit wants to live.
Exactly.
You just explain it the way you did.
Yeah. So no, basically what happened is just like within this whole change of me opening myself just to be more spiritual and more emotional. The wife of my business partner, for some reason, she saw I call it the wave, right? It's like you're surfing and she's like, surf this wave. She saw my wave and she was like, I want to be in that wave. So she started like changing and opening herself in ways I was just like, sometimes I was like, is she really meaning this? Or is she like just trying to be like, with me, helping me out through this process? And no, she genuinely meant it, and she really wanted to change, and she wanted to consider other things that she wasn't considering back then. But for some reason, she had this internal, let's call it gut, that she was kind of, I really need to push this forward. So she met this lady, and this lady, and she's a very special lady. She doesn't have a title. It's not that she's a shaman, she's a healer. She's like a very, very special person. Her name is Lily. She has a very, very good energy. And when she speaks to you, she speaks like, I don't know, differently. And I remember my business partner's wife, she calls me and tells me, hey, listen, I want you to go and see this woman. I'm like, okay. So I went and spoke to her. When I was talking to her, she was the one that told me, it's like, listen, this ALS disease is a disease of change. And basically what's happening is like your spirit is not obtaining with your body what it wants in this life. So if your body is going and your mind is going in a different way, the spirit you want, then definitely the spirit's going to take off his suit and say, okay, I don't want this suit anymore. I'm just going to put another one. And and it was interesting. Of course, I mean, all of these things when they tell you at the very beginning, it's really hard to understand. And then you go like, well, it makes sense, right? It's just like, and today I changed, and I think that the peace or balance that I have today, and the gratitude and love and not being angry at anybody, for me, it's part of this big change. For me, and most of the times when I sit with people and tell me, okay, what is your definition of happiness? Because today everybody speaks about happiness. It's like, what is happiness? How do you fight for happiness? I mean, how you can tell what is happiness, right? It's like, well, for me, it's just like when all of your layers are aligned and they're balanced, that's for me happiness. And happiness is mine. It doesn't depend on anybody else. It's just mine.
Right. So, all right. So I have a question, because a lot of people are sitting right now. They're in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
They can't move, and they can't speak.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'd be capable of being happy in that state and aligned?
I think they can, yeah. And I had a case of actually just a person in Argentina that he can speak. He's actually he cannot move. He's in a wheelchair. He has assistance 24 hours a day. And for some reason, after I published my video on Instagram, he contacted me. And I remember I sent him a message saying, hey, listen, here's my phone number. Can we connect through WhatsApp? And he was like, okay. And so I texted him, hey, listen, why don't we speak? And he was like, I can't speak. And I was like, okay. And I'm going to tell you everything that I did. So I started writing. And the one who was writing was actually his assistant, who was actually texting me. And next thing I know, it's like the next day when we spoke again, because for some reason we really communicated, we really connected. And I cried. I felt like so much pain. I felt his pain as well. He was really going through a lot of stress as well. And he told me he was going to give up. He just was about to give up. And then for some reason, I don't know, we just spoke, we just talked about so many things. And last Monday, I was here dealing with a hurricane in Miami. And I spoke to him and I was like, hey, listen, how are you? And he was like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy because I have this feeling that I can really turn this thing around. And I feel better on the inside. And for some reason, something weird happened because he was actually with his psychologist and his assistant. And I don't know if he dialed by mistake his phone, but I've heard like the part of the conversation, not because I wanted to hear, but I saw his number calling in and it was like, okay, Martin, is that you? And I heard the psychologist asking him, it's like, how do you feel? And he could barely speak. I mean, he can't speak, but for some reason he kind of like said something like he was great. And the psychologist translated that. And for me, just to hear that was just like, oh God, I mean, how he's changing by the minute. And he's texting me like every half an hour, just like, I watched the movie Heal. It touched me so much. I feel like if I can really do the programming, if I really can not just like convince myself that I really can just heal by myself, I can really, have an opportunity at this. And I can wait definitely just to go to Argentina and give him a big hug because for some reason I feel him. It's like not that I feel him like with mine, but definitely just like how he's changing. And do I know if that's going to revert any of the things that he had on ALS? I have no clue.
Yeah, but he's happy in himself. And so that was a great answer to that question. But I have one more question. We're finishing up here because I know this is really long. It's been almost 2.5 hours. So, do you think that you could be happy in a wheelchair, not being able to move or speak?
I don't know. I mean, I have no clue. I haven't been there. I've been there. I've been not up to that stage. But what I can definitely tell you is I was able to change all of my anger and my sadness. And I think that the more I get to know myself, I realize that I think that we can find that happiness, that balance in ourselves. And by happiness, it doesn't mean that you have to be smiling all the time, because you're going to have like good and bad times. But the thing is that when you're balanced, that's for me the happiness. So I think I can reach that point. Yeah.
Okay. So I do have a last question, and that's if, because I met a quadriplegic once, and she said, and here she was a quadriplegic, and she couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, the accident was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, even though I can't move anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because she grew so much as a person. She says, I'm a completely different person than I was before.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, can you be grateful for the ALS at this point?
Yeah. And I have goosebumps right now. But I used to say I hated ALS when I was diagnosed, and today I'm actually grateful for everything that changed me, everything that showed me, everything that kind of inspires me. I mean, the way I see life today, the way I behave in life, the way I value my son, my relationship with my son, the relationship with myself, and I think that's one of the most important things, right? And it taught me so much, and still does. And I don't know. I think I was under the impression that I had to educate my son. I had to impose things on my son. And today, I think that he taught me so much more. And he's a 13-year-old kid. And this disease is just like, it was devastating at the very beginning. And today, I can tell you, like, it teaches me every single day so much. And it still does, because when I have like a stressful situation, it's still just like the friendly reminder, I'm still here. This is not the path that you want to walk. And I just say no. I turn around and I look the other way, just like walk a different path. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.